are free to give your opinions about this next question from Sweet Brown Sugar's Lazy Eye. Poor Skip Young.
God damn.
Jim, as a lifelong wrestling fan, I grew up watching Saturday Night Wrestling and later world-class wrestling out of Dallas. My all-time favorite heel was Gino Hernandez, whose life was tragically cut short in the 80s. After watching Ric Flair evolve into the best professional wrestler of all time, it is my opinion that Gino Hernandez could have been better, even exceeding the Nature's record accomplishments. Gino had the looks, size, amazing mic skills, could generate over-the-top heat, and was a superior in-ring performer. Do you agree? Or am I just suffering from good old day syndrome?
I agree with much of it. Great promo, great personality, great look, looked good. Was a heel, a perfect heel, textbook, condescending, rich, arrogant, playboy heel. Excellent psychologist, good worker in the ring, led matches well. If you go back and watch the Wrestling Gold set, for example, you'll see a couple matches with Gino from San Antonio, including a couple matches with Tully, where he was a fucking madcap bumper in his day, too. By the time that I knew him, he got to Dallas in 85, 86, 85 at least, when we were there. He wasn't like you see him in a late 70s, early 80s San Antonio match, and he'll take the upside down in the corner and then fly off the apron of the ring and just willy-nilly land wherever the fuck. He was a little smarter by the time that I met him, but couple problems. Number one, no body whatsoever. He looked good for then, but stand him next to Ric Flair. Ric Flair looked like a professional athlete, and Gino looked like a rich guy that was working out in a gym. Secondly, Gino was good at what he did, but always worked territory. I don't know that him or any human being could have kept the pace up that Ric Flair did, and working at his level against the level of opponents, and et cetera, as the champion. I don't think that people would have ever bought Gino to this day to be a legend like they did Flair as being legitimate, even though probably Gino was as legitimate as Flair, if not more so, in what you saw on screen versus real life. And to be honest, you said, what if it hadn't happened? But if it hadn't happened, it would have happened, because if Gino tried to keep up Flair's schedule and pace being put in that spot, well, you saw what happened when he was just working a territory 5 nights a week, making real good territory money, and living his gimmick. What if he was working 7 nights a week, an hour a night, and making huge money, not just territory money, but top money in the business money? It would have happened anyway.
It's a good point. He was working maybe the easiest territory to work, the easiest full-time territory.
Oh, Jesus Christ. He's in Dallas in 1985. I'm sure he was going to make $100,000 that year, and business was down, but he was on top and working with the Von Erichs. And I guarantee you he didn't work more than 5 days a week. And 2 of those were within 30 miles of your house.
Where do you think he would have ended up? Let's say somehow he gets past his cocaine problems to the point where he could be a functioning cocaine user like so many were in the 80s.
Yeah.
Where does he end up? I mean, is he someone that you think because of the body he would never end up with Vince, even though as a performer he certainly could? Do you think he ends up working for Jim Crockett?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he would have been on the NWA side, just because not only did he fit that better. I mean, but look there, except if I don't know whether Tully at that point would have put a word in for him or against him. I don't know what their relationship was at that point, but he knew a lot of the guys. He'd worked with a lot of the guys. He knew how to work the NWA style. He knew how to talk the NWA style. He would have fit. I mean, imagine Gino in the Horsemen at one point with Tully and Flair and Arn. It would have worked. Except not, I say it would have worked on camera. He could have hung in that company professionally, in the NWA with the rest of the talent. But at the same point, I don't know that he would have gravitated toward hanging around with him outside the ring. I don't know if he'd have been a horseman outside the ring or if he'd have wanted to do his own thing.
Gino passed away in early 86. What do you think would have happened a few months later when Ken Mantell goes to become Bill Watts' booker and takes so much of that talent. And also Bill Watts obviously is partners with Paul Boesch in Houston. Do you think Gino would have made the jump with Ken Mantell?
Unless there's something to do with some of those personalities that, right before the end of his life that we don't know about, I would imagine that would almost been certain. Except, Gino was also, he would have been loyal to the Von Erichs too, though, because, it just depends. It just depends probably on which way the wind was blowing at that point.
If he would have stayed, we would have had some classic Gino Hernandez Dingo Warrior matches.
Oh, good. That might have been the reason why he left. I remember one night because Gino he was happy with his face and he was a good looking young man, right? And at a spot show one night, like in Sulphur Springs, Texas, me and Bobby and Dennis are sitting in the locker room because there's only, on those spot shows, they would have a captain's match, which was a single match out of the tag, right? Then another single preliminary, then a tag match, and then the single main event with one of the Von Erichs against either Gino or Chris or Gang. So you're basically looking at 4, 5, 6, 8 guys and a referee on the card.
Yeah.
So literally the heel locker room consisted of me, Bobby Eaton, Dennis Condrey, and Kelly Kaniski. That was the entire heel locker room. When Gino busts in and he's bleeding from up over his right eye, the motherfucker, what the fuck? I think it was Kevin. It may have been Kerry, but he had called the where Gino comes in with the chair and he's going to hit the babyface with the chair, and the babyface jumps up and drop kicks it. It goes into the heel. He takes a fucking bump and scrams. That's the end of the match after the finish, right? Fucking the Von Erich boy, he fucking drop kicked that chair good. Let's just say that. And Gino had no choice. Not only was that chair going into his face, but he was going down and it busted him open and he's fucking hot. And I'm like, well, it's time for us to go. We'll see you later. And we're taking off. And I can't imagine if he'd had to suffer the onslaught of the original Green Road Warriors or things like that. If it might have been hard for Gino.
$50 it was Kevin. I'll just say that right.
And that's the thing, Gino. I think it was Gino and Chris both used to drive Dennis Condrey crazy because they would take bumps with their hands down. If you watch Gino and then Chris started doing it, they'd take a backdrop, they'd put their hands down, their feet and their hands would hit, and then their ass, and he was like, what the fuck are they? And then we got in the Texas rings and figured out that, my God, they were the hardest rings you'd ever been in. And they were trying to do anything they could to prolong their fucking career.
Would have been interesting in UWF in early 86. Could have had Gino versus DiBiase, Gino versus Terry Taylor. He probably wouldn't have liked working with Duggan, but you get the picture.